Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Live action.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, and now Saucy Calf, traditional Native American food, all located right here in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, heck of a songwriter too, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Good to see you. Who are we talking to today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, we've got the great Jake Hooker with us today. You know, he's a singer, a musician, a band leader, and he's also, Cody, recently been inducted into the Texas Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame. He was awarded the Star of Texas Award. And this is what the criteria for that is: given to an entertainer who promotes and values the rodeo cowboy and their way of life. That sounds like our kind of guy.
That's right.
And he sings the kind of music I grew up on. You know, that's what I like about him. And you were lucky enough to get him booked for the Ben Johnson days coming up.
That's right.
And we can't wait for that.
We're pretty excited.
Oh, man. Anyway, Jake, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Morning, man. How y'all doing?
We're doing great, man. What'd you think of that, the Texas Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame? That must have been quite an honor, wasn't it?
Well, yes, sir. Absolutely. A tremendous honor. Tremendous honor. You bet.
Because all singers want to be cowboys and cowboys want to be singers. So I bet that was a
right. I know it. You know, and I've been fortunate enough my life, the way I've been able to grow up and all the people I've been able to be around, I've been able to be both. And so it's been, yeah, it's awesome.
Did you ever do any rodeo at all?
You know, I did. So as far as me, sure enough, rodeo, just some little open rodeos or amateur rodeos, and then, you know, jackpot team ropings and things like that. But I always tell everybody, man, I had the best rodeo career, which, I mean, I wouldn't call it any kind of career, but anytime I entered the rodeo, I always entered where I was playing the dance afterward. And so I always had a guaranteed paycheck.
Right.
Always. That's the only way I figured I wasn't ever good enough to make it pay, so I had to make it pay some other way.
Right. Yeah, that was a pretty good deal. Where'd you grow up at, Jake?
Out in Pecos, Texas. I grew up in Pecos as a young guy, and then I moved to around San Angelo, a little town called Mertzon right there. When I started high school right there. Wow. And so, yeah.
And your dad, he had a band, right?
You bet. Yes, sir. Yeah. Back him and his brother, they started one back in the late 60s, I guess. And then, they played out there, played a lot of the dances, rodeo dances and things out there in West Texas. And yes, sir. So I just grew up in it, you know, and I always tell everybody, you know, it was in my house. That was just kind of what we did and what my dad did. And so I wanted to be like my dad. And that's what it sounded like, to be like my dad. That's what it looked like. And so that's what I went after.
What a rodeo town he grew up in, too. Pecos, Texas.
Oh, you bet.
Home of the first rodeo, in my opinion.
Exactly. And so as a kid, I tell my boys about it. I said, man, growing up in Pecos, when you're a little kid and the rodeo comes to town, man, it's a different feeling out there because the whole town, and it still does, it still caters to the rodeo. The whole town shuts down. There's banners everywhere, and the businesses will close early. And if there's a parade, everybody's involved, and it smells like rodeo. It's just, there's an atmosphere that, and it's like, again, it's still going on today. We play. We'll be out there this year. We play for the sponsor party or the kickoff dance to it, like on Monday night, and it still feels that way, man. It still smells like that. I can still smell it. It still smells the same as when I was a kid, and I just love it.
You know, it used to be my favorite rodeo growing up. Every year I'd go down with my dad, Jimbo, because where we grew up in Kansas, fireworks were illegal because all the crops around there, they didn't allow fireworks to be sold. And so I'd save my money up all year for when we headed to Pecos. There was a big roping in Monahans we'd spend about a week at, and then we'd go to Pecos. And guess what I did? I bought firecrackers down there, Jimbo. Pop the heck out of them. The dirt down there is like nothing else. The dirt is like baby powder. It's crazy. You take a step and it just poofs all the way out from all four sides of your boots. Wow. It's
the craziest thing. It's from all them salt cedars down in there. It's weird. It's tough. It's a tough, like a tough way to make a living out there. And it makes a tough people, it makes a hard kind of people and good people. But boy, they're different out there because of that.
Yeah, I love the place. We used to go eat at this place called Sally's across the track. It was this little Mexican food joint. And there was this dude wearing a white tank top, Jimbo, and he had tattoos all over him. And he said, you guys want some chips? I'm like, yeah. So he took the chips and salsa off another guy's table and came put them on our table. You don't really drink the water down there. It seems like everybody drinks a can of Coke or a can of beer or something, you know. You don't see too many people drinking the water or the iced tea around there.
No.
And they had the old famous, one of the most famous Old West things in the world right there, the old Jersey Lily with Judge Roy Bean, the only law west of the Pecos.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I always thought that was fun.
It is pretty neat.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of historic place out there. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I call that home, and I call Mertzon home. I got, it's always will be home to me.
It's a true Old West town, and it's honestly one of the best rodeos in the whole country. They pack them in. They just pack them in there, and you wouldn't think there'd be that many people around Pecos, but there are. So
I know it. Everybody shows up for the rodeo, and I love how all the guys that are going today, and then the guys that maybe have retired or whatever, they'll still enter Pecos. Yeah, out of all of it, they'll say, you know what? Now we're going to go to Pecos. We're going to no matter what we do this year, we're going to enter Pecos, and so that says a lot.
Well, they still rope bigger calves. They still score them out there quite a ways.
You bet.
It's more than one head. So, older guys, they actually got a chance of winning some money at Pecos, because
you bet.
It's a Cowboys rodeo. They've kept it very traditional. Did you know, Jake, that they held the national final steer roping there, I think, twice?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the late 60s, I think 68 and 69 or 69 70. What it was.
How cool is that?
Yeah, and it was, Jake, it was a muddy booger, too.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that something? You usually don't associate mud and Pecos in the same sentence, but
unless the rodeo's
usually
coming
so dry. That's right. Unless rodeo's coming to town, it brings rain.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. One year, I was rodeoing pretty hard, and Sonora's going on the same time now, Jimbo. And I'm going to tell you one thing. If you're up at Sonora in the morning at the Slack and you're back up at Pecos that night in the rodeo, you better have a full tank of gas when you leave Sonora, because there ain't nowhere to get gas until you exit for Pecos. We ran out 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, we ran out of diesel between Sonora and Pecos. We had like 3/4 of tank when we left. Yeah. Oh, we got enough to get on down the road somewhere. You think we'd have learned our lesson the first time.
Thought.
But it takes me a while to learn a lesson.
Jake, I read somewhere you started playing that big upright bass when you were 7 years old. That thing had to be bigger than you.
Well, Well, I started playing electric bass when I was that age. I'd play guitar and electric bass, but the upright bass didn't come on till later. I didn't get it till probably right around year 2000. So I've had it about 24, 25 years, something like that.
What made you want to play it? Man,
just I don't know, would you say I'm kind of a student of the music, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. Like I get to play on a lot of recording sessions and things like that. I know the music that we do. I know it kind of in and out. And so studying it that way and wanting to emulate that sound and get that sound and just listen to those old records and hours upon hours of just listening to those records and investigating it. Mm-hmm. That was the sound, that upright bass, and so that was the driving force, the whole backbone of every bit of it. And so, so I wanted to do that. And so I did.
Who were some of the guys that influenced you back then, their music?
Well, Bob Wills, Ray Price. In my house, my dad, Ray Price was my dad's guy. And, but Bob Wills was, that sound, the Ray Price sound, the Johnny Bush sound, mm-hmm. Farron Young, Mel Tillis, all those guys. But those three that I first mentioned, Bob Wills, Ray Price, and Johnny Bush, that was the kind of the main ones those were the favorites. And, like I said, I believe, and what I do now and what I've kind of shaped my music after is all three of those guys melded together, and then with some influences of some other stuff too. But that driving force. So you listen to Bob Wills' music and it make you get up and want to dance. Sure. And you listen to Johnny Bush and he make you want to get up and dance. And Ray Price would just polish it up, And so it kind of trying to take that drive, because you know what, just like talking to you guys, when you play for Cowboys and you play for people that work hard, well, they play hard. And so you can't just show up and just kind of, baby foot around. Mm-hmm. No, you got to make them feel. And my whole life, I wanted people to feel what the music makes me feel. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get that across. Well, sometimes it's a little rough around the edges, and we just, I just tell the boys, if you're going to make a mistake, make it loud. Make it loud. And right. So, that's how we kind of go. And so we get to play these dances and I love it. It's usually hot. It's usually outdoors. It's dusty, especially playing around the rodeos, and it ain't for everybody. But it's for me and my guys, and we love it. But it's work. You got to make them people dance, and that's what we're there for. And so in the day, you didn't ask me this, but in this day and age that we're in, where the music has just turned into little concerts and it is what it is. Well, man, it's totally backwards. We have rodeo events and you have Western events, and there's no Western music. There's no real music there. And so it just sticks in my craw so bad. They've moved away from the traditional rodeo dance. Right. And, and it's just, it's sickening is what it is for me. And, cause just like everywhere you look, the cowboy is not represented correctly in the mainstream world. Right. So and I think so for us, that's where we want to stand on that as well. So we do what we do to keep the integrity of the music, but also the Western way of life.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Jimbo, as many bars and rodeo dances I've been to, mm-hmm. I can't dance or play pool. Boy. I don't know what I was doing, but I was having a dang good time.
You must have just been drinking.
Well, after a few, I did think I could dance, but I never really could, honestly.
Right.
Everybody can dance after a few of them old banquets.
Right.
When I first got acquainted with Jake and acquainted with his music, they have one of the best invitational steer ropings and calf ropings and team ropings down at Hereford, Texas. It's called the Spicer Grip Roping, and it's a good one, Jimbo. And Jake Hooker plays every single night, or he did, after each roping.
Still do. You bet. Still do.
And first time I heard him, I just thought it was the greatest thing I ever heard, Jimbo. And hell, I got to hear him the next night and the next night and the next night, all at the same rope.
That's awesome.
Well, like I say, that's the kind of music we grew up on, Cody. You know, and then the stuff they're playing on the radio today, you know, you reckon they'll ever make a big circle and get back to it, Jake, or will it never come out?
Well, you know what? Here's what I've noticed, and here's what I know to be true. The reason why it's still here is because it's real. It's got some substance to it. Mm-hmm. And it represents y'all. It represents real people. It represents a cowboy way of life. A people that, like, their values don't change. The way of work don't change. So, like, you know, if you're raising, if you got a cattle ranch, well, you got to have a bull and a cow to make a calf. And that never changes. And then when that calf gets here, you either got to castrate him, you got to do something. You get brand every year, right? It's the same type deal. Well, that's the same with this music. It represents that. Like, it's got that kind of substance that just doesn't ever fail. And so the new stuff coming out, it's representing a different kind of people. And so I think the music for us, this music, absolutely, I believe it'll come around full circle, because if you look around, people they're grasping at stuff, and they're just trying to find something. Mm-hmm. Well, what they're trying to find is something real. And whenever they grab a hold of it and they see it, they get it. They're hungry for it, and they don't even realize that that's what they're needing until they actually get it. And so, absolutely, but it takes staying hooked for all of us. And, you know, and everybody that's either playing this type of music or being in the Western way of life is, you know, we got a responsibility to uphold it for the next one's coming up. So that's why I'm pretty adamant about the dances at the rodeos and things like that, because it's come full circle for me now at playing all these dances and for all these years and doing, I'm playing for kids that I played their parents' wedding, and now I'm fixing to play their wedding. It's been like that. So I'm seeing that, but what I'm seeing is a lot of these young kids that didn't grow up listening to music like you guys did and like I did. Well, they don't know how to like, they're like Cody. They don't know how to dance. Yeah. They don't know how to do some of these dances. They don't even know how to act at it. They're not sure what they're even supposed to do. Right. So the only way that they can do that is for these, because just like you guys, your parents took you to the dance, or when you was a kid or after the rodeo, there was a dance and you went to it. Well, man, it's that thing. It's learned, it's passed down. And so we got to continue to do that. And if we'll do it, the music is there and it'll stick. So anyway, that's a long answer, long way around the wheel there, but yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I'm sure enough passionate about, and sure enough is something that I think is worth hanging on to for sure.
He is a true fan of rodeo too, Jimbo. I know it for a fact because we used to not only rope at that roping, we used to supply all the cattle at that roping at the Spicer Grip. And, you know, when I wasn't roping, I had to be back there sorting, help load, horn wrap cattle or whatever. And I'll be dang, I looked up and Jake Hooker's right back there, right by all of us, helping punch cattle up down in the, to be turned out, and help sorting back there in the back pens, just jumping in, doing whatever he wants to do. And he's also paying close attention to the roping, you know? Right. So, yeah, I really gained a lot of respect for him at that roping. I don't even know that he knows I was there, but, you know, I definitely paid a lot of attention to him there. And right. I was like, dang, this guy is a roping fan. That's cool.
And you're right. I totally am, for sure, man. I love being around the guys, and like I said, you guys are my people, and I love everything that goes into it. There's that Red Seagull song for all our cowboy friends where he said, Hawkeye said, you know what I like about a cowboy's way of life? Every damn thing, Hoss, I like her all. And so that's me. You bet. Right. I love every bit of it. Yeah.
Did your dad ever get to play with or be around Bob Wills any?
No, he didn't. You know, Bob was already, by that time, he was, Bob died in 75. And so my dad he was just too young to be around that bunch. But he was around Johnny Bush and around Daryl McCall and guys like that. And but some of the Playboys out there, they Don Toll and some of the guys, some of Johnny Lee Wills' band, he knew some of those guys, and they played together. So it's all kind of intertwined. But he never was around Bob.
Did you know one of Bob's wives was a Pawhuska girl?
Was she really?
Yeah.
This was Bob Will's unofficial home up here.
Yeah. He played here in Osage County a bunch, and when he lived in Tulsa, and he married a Pawhuska girl. Marriage didn't last too long, but he had a little girl, Rosetta, and
right.
And
she was born in Pawhuska.
Yeah, she was born in Pawhuska and went to school here and graduated here.
Nice.
And she wrote a wonderful book that I'm reading right now about her dad. But
how neat is that?
But he played about 3 venues right here in Osage County. Jumps Roller Rink over at Fairfax and the Whiting Hall here in Pawhuska, and then a place over west of Shidler. I think it's called the Big Beaver or something.
Yeah.
And
that's where all the Chapman Barner guys would go every night.
But
I heard.
Yeah, he had and what was funny, they said that when he was dating her, when she was living here in Pawhuska, and he'd come up here on Sunday to see her, and people got used to seeing him come, and they'd line the streets, even in Barnstall, a little town southeast of here. They knew he'd be coming through there on Sunday, and they'd be sitting on the steps just so they could wave at him, because he was like Elvis, and he'd wave back at him. I thought that was crazy.
That is wild.
Didn't your dad go on double dates with him? And
my dad double dated with Rosetta. One of his best friends dated Rosetta a little bit, and double dated with.
I'll be dang.
And then we had a couple of his band members from right here in the area too that would play with him. I can't remember their names right off the top of my head, but there was one guy that played a big bass like you, Jake, that lived right here in the Pawhuska area.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd figure out who that was.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure. Somebody told me just the other day. I think it was the guy's daughter. She may even still have his bass. We're trying to get our hands on that thing. And,
oh man, absolutely, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, this was big Bob Will's country up here. Tell him about that story when everyone got so worried about him, Jimbo.
Oh, he used to play on KVOO. He'd come on like 12:30 every day, and it was like the Texas Playboys are on the air. That's how it start. And that's before TV and stuff. And everybody'd come in, drop what they were doing, come in for lunch, and turn the radio on to hear Bob and the Texas Playboys. And it was just a religion, basically. And one day he didn't come on, about 1940, and they couldn't figure out where he was, and the switchboards lit up all over the country. And everybody was disappointed. Come to find out, he was at the Pawhuska Hospital while his daughter was being born that day.
I'll be.
And the only other day he missed, I think, was they said Adolf Hitler come on in 1939 and gave some speech, and everybody was so mad because they had to listen to Adolf Hitler instead of Bob Wills.
I'll be dang.
Didn't they? They had a rodeo too. Johnny Lee.
Yeah. What'd you start to say, Jack?
At Pawhuska there?
Do what? I missed that. What'd you say?
The rodeo. What were you saying about the rodeo?
Oh,
Johnny Lee Wills. He used to put on a rodeo right over in Tulsa. The Johnny Lee Wills rodeo.
Yeah, right.
How neat. We just got through with the Bob Wills days. They're in Turkey. They have it in Turkey, Texas every year. At the last weekend in April, they'll have Bob Wills days. And I've been trying to urge them to have a rodeo with it. I used to have a steer open
about 10 miles down the road or 15 in Flomont, Texas, right during Bob Wills days. And
exactly.
I slipped over there one time, and you wouldn't believe the party that they throw around Bob Wills music. Holy moly, it's one of the wildest nights of my life, Jimbo.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's a good time. People out there in Turkey, they just show up with their bedroll, and there's people sleeping in tents, and it's a cool deal. And music going on around everywhere. But I always thought it'd be so cool they'd institute back a rodeo there, and because it'd be pretty cool to win a Bob Wills buckle or a Bob Wills saddle. That'd be pretty good.
They ought to at least have a ranch rodeo out there.
Well, I know it because that's the crowd, and it would be good. It's hard to there's one old arena, but it's about half fallen down, and it's just they haven't jumped on it to do it yet. But I sure wish they would.
Is that where Bob Wills is from, Jake, I guess?
He was out there. They'd moved out there whenever he was a young guy, but they were sharecroppers, his parents. And so they moved around, and then they ended up out there, and he was out there for a while, and that was his home for a while. Yes. So they claim him for sure.
Ooh, that's a good place to visit, but a rough place to live, I would assume.
You know,
It'd be a tough way to hack out a living right there.
Cody, when I was a kid going to rodeos, especially steer rope and jackpots and stuff, the sound man would always bring music before the roping started, and it would almost always be Bob Wills, just over and over those same songs. And
You bet.
I just grew up on them, you know, and I just loved them so much.
Absolutely.
Who was your favorite Bob Wills vocalist, Jake?
Man, you know, mine, I loved, Tommy and Leon and Tag Lambert, but Leon Roush and I were really good friends, and Leon was my favorite.
Me too.
And even before I'd met him, Leon was my favorite. Yeah.
Me too. I love when he sang Milk Cow Blues. That was so
Oh,
good.
you bet. Nobody can sing it like him. I'm
Right.
telling you, the guy and he was such a peach of a guy and a character. He was awesome to be around. And
Yeah.
I got to be around a lot of those guys. And so it's, you bet. It's such a music that just, it pinpoints the people. And I mean, the Western people, and it's pretty amazing what it really is.
Wow.
I saw an old video of the band the other day, Jimbo, and Bob Wills was walking around on stage. He had two 6-shooters on his side. He had a
I'm
whole
telling you,
gun belt rig on.
Right.
you bet.
He was a character.
That was too cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Jake, I may be wrong about this. I was watching a small documentary about a song that they wrote for the movie Junior Bonner the other day, and
Yep.
they said they didn't ever play it, but they were also playing another song in the background in a bar there in Prescott, and it was that Rodeo Man. Is that where that song originated?
Absolutely, and I forget that guy's name that wrote it, but I think he's the guy singing it in the movie at the bar, in that bar scene right there. So that's where I got it. I paused the movie, I wrote down, and then I'd play it, then I'd pause it, and I'd write the words down. That's where I got that song, and and man, it's Junior Bonner. I was trying to find it on TV last night, as a matter of fact. It was on the Western deal, and I was trying to find it. They didn't have it. But yeah, one of the greatest movies ever.
Yeah, for sure. It was like a 5-minute documentary or something on YouTube, you know, and they were talking about this song that they wrote for the movie that they never used in the movie, but somehow they played this song, and they were showing that bar scene where that band was playing and Ben Johnson was out there dancing around.
Yeah.
And I got to listen, and I said, holy moly, that's that song Jake Hooker sings, Rodeo Man, my favorite song, you know?
Yeah,
And,
you bet.
you know, I think that's probably just about every rodeo cowboy's favorite song, you know, just the opening line that, you know, that they do on it, you guys do on it, you know, it's rodeo time.
I know it.
And,
You bet. And I got that from the movie. Steve McQueen said, well, it's rodeo time. I got to get her on down the road. He tells that old gal, he leaves her right there at the bus station. He said, I got to roll.
God,
it's rodeo time.
That's great.
So
Don't get any more
so
rodeo than that.
No.
And I wrote a song week before last. I was talking with Wes Stevenson, the bareback rider, at Fort Worth the other day at that induction deal, and he was telling me a story. He said, "Hey, you know," he said, "I traveled with Tom McFarland and Will Lowe. We were best friends. We traveled together all the time." And he said, "Man, it'd never fail. We'd stay out too late the night before and be a little hungover." And he said, "Sure enough, get to the rodeo and like look at the draw, and we got some buckers. We're gonna have to wake up because we're fixing to have to get on something real." And he said, I'd look up there at the record spinner up there, the sound guy, and tell him, "Hey, Rodeo Man." and so he said he'd play that Rodeo Man and do it. So I wrote a song about it the other day, and so anyway, it turned out pretty good. I'll have to send it to you when we get off here. But yeah, so we'll have that on the next album.
You're gonna play at Pawhuska next month for everyone to hear live?
Absolutely, man. it's going to be a staple. It turned out really good. Yeah.
You know, I was sitting around, I think we were in Sheridan, Wyoming one time, and it's one of the very first songs I ever heard that time I heard that song, and no, we weren't listening to the song, but Brent Lewis was sitting there, and he told everybody, "Hey, it's rodeo time. We got to get her on down the road, boys." And,
Hey.
I just thought it was so cool. It's such a cool line, such a cool song, and you know, and it really does speak to us rodeo guys, and we all know a guy that song reminds us of. To me, that song reminded me of a guy named Ralph Williams. You know, when he was he's such a cool guy. He still pulls a 2-horse inline trailer around. You know, he still rodeos out of a camper. You know,
Right.
he's just so old school, and that's such an old school song. Every time I hear that song, I think about Ralphie, and he was one of my old traveling partners, and I don't know, it just makes me smile every time I hear it.
Well, absolutely, man. I love it. That's so good. And Brent Lewis, we was at San Angelo at the Roping Fiesta one year, and when I recorded that song, I said Pecos. I was raised in the town of Pecos, is what I said. But on the movie, you know, it's Prescott. It says I'm raised in the town of Prescott. Got the home folks on my side. Well, I'd say Pecos. And Brent Lewis, they're standing there, and him and Clint Singleton, and there were some of them guys standing around. They was on the whiskey a little bit, and I come by there, and Brent Lewis, he grabbed a hold of my tie, you know, because we wear a suit and tie, and me and Brent were friends even at this point, but he grabbed a hold of me. He said, "Hook," he said, "I'm going to tell you, it's Prescott. It ain't Pecos. You say Prescott, or I'm going to tackle you off that stage." And those guys standing around, everybody's laughing, but Clint Singleton said, "Hey, he'll do it. You better say Prescott." Yeah, and I knew it too. Yeah. So anyway, so now when I sing it, I say Prescott, and I'll say Brent Lewis after it. Yeah. So.
You say Prescott, not Prescott. You say Pecos, not Pecos.
That's right. You bet. That's it. That's how you do it.
Yeah, they'll set you straight real quick, either place.
Hey, you bet. And I love it. Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of Angelo, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I heard through the grapevine that this last year was the last year for him to hold a steer rope in there.
Really?
Somebody
Well, how
going to
ridiculous
replace
is
it with a
that?
breakaway roping on Sunday.
You got to be kidding me.
I don't like that.
Well,
I hope there's no truth to it, but
no.
if there is, I think that everyone should call the San Angelo Stock Show board and say something about it, because it wasn't calf roping, it wasn't breakaway roping, it wasn't bulldogging.
No.
It was steer roping that started that whole deal. So
Exactly. Yeah.
speaking of steer roping, you wrote a song about what I think everyone would pick as the number one steer roper to ever live, except for a few old timers that picked Shoat Webster or someone. Guy Allen.
You bet.
How'd you write that song? Did you spend some time with him?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, you know, just being around and being around all you guys then, and he was always around, and we were just, you know, we hit it off early on, and I'd known him for a pretty good while, and I had this idea just come across me one day, and so anyway, so I called him. I said, "Hey, Ledge," I said, "Man, I need to know a little bit. I need to know some information. Like, tell me, what are some of the horses that you rode, and I just need some info. Just talk. I just need well, anybody knows Guy Allen knows that he don't talk. Like he don't say. Well,
we did a
but thank
podcast with
goodness
him. He was very talkative somehow one time.
he is now. You know, he's great. But back then, when I called him, he would Rhodey Goodwin and Jason Prue were in the truck with him, and they were driving down the road, and Les goes, "Hey guys, hey, this hooker. He's going to write a song about me. Y'all tell him something. Tell him so. Here. And he passed the phone off. So anyway, that's kind of how the song came about. But I just had the idea of the ledge and nodding your head and all that. And when they call this name, when I nod my head, the ledge is how I'm known. And so anyway, that was just kind of how it started. And then I just wrote it. But I tried to call and get some information from the horse's mouth, but I didn't get a whole lot of information there.
Well, the horse he won on everything on, and his name was Jeremiah.
I know it, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't get it in there.
Yeah, that's
and you know what I'm talking about.
The only song named Jeremiah, I think, is Jeremiah the Bullfrog. That's the only one that can fit in.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one year I jumped in the pickup with Ledge and went to a few rodeos with him. It wasn't a pickup. He had like this semi deal. He had the coolest rig on the road at the time. And me and him and Vin Fisher, and I was just a young guy. And it always struck me weird. He's the only guy that would sit down at a restaurant and order a salad with lettuce only, nothing on it, and just eat it. He said he was trying to keep in shape or something. I don't remember what he told me. I've never seen someone eat a salad with no cheese, no salad dressing, no crouton, no bacon,
man,
nothing, plain lettuce.
I
tell you what, he came from a historic. You know, his grandpa was a roper. His dad was a great roper. His brother's a great roper, and he's the greatest roper of all time.
Right, you bet.
It's in that guy's genes.
Absolutely. And then again, like what we were talking about earlier, passed down. Right? Passed down, like this thing of wanting to be that. You grow up in it, and then you got a choice to make. Am I going to be this, or do I want to go do something else? And man, I just think that carries so much weight. You see guys like that. You know, you look at Trevor Brazile, and it was passed down his dad. And so, you know, I mean, you got things like that. Look at you. And so it's passed down. And I just think absolutely. Right. And so it's, you know, we get a chance to grow up in something. And again, you know, I've got family members that grew up in the same house I did, but they didn't go down the music route, and they can play a little bit. They've got some, talent where that's concerned, but, I chose to jump in with both feet, you know? And so, I think that, you know, a guy like Guy Allen coming from a long legacy of cowboy and roping and steer roping. Sure enough, steer roping. That says a lot. It's pretty cool.
Trevor's dad, he was a national final steer roper, and he's one of the only men in history of the national finals to make the steer roping finals left-handed. So he actually roped left-handed. Instead of ducking left, he ducked right, and you know, they grew up in cowboy country out there, Guyman, Oklahoma, Dumas, Texas, working on a feed yard. Can you imagine that? I mean, you have no choice but to be a pretty good cowboy. And even when Trevor was a young man, he had an intensity that the rest of us kids didn't have. You know, we'd have dummy matches around at those ropings, and you didn't want Trevor to come up and join the dummy match. I can tell you that right now.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that trend kind of followed him his whole career, man. When he entered, everybody kind of figured they were just roping for second.
I remember when he first came on, he was just in his he was just on his permit. He went and won the rodeo in Laredo, Texas. He won the rodeo there, and then like the next day he won the rodeo in Stephenville, steer roping. Everybody took real quick notice, real fast on that guy.
Yeah, you bet.
And that was the first year he went to the timed event. I think he ended up second. You know, he wasn't even 20 years old yet. So,
right.
I got a lot of respect for Trevor. He's in my mind, he's probably one of the greatest champions. He's one of the only guys, you know, that I would see. He'd take the time to talk to the young kids. He didn't show any kind of bad influences on anybody. You know, he would always, you wouldn't see him after the rodeo drinking beer with all of us. You know, it was a rare day, and a very hot day if you saw Trevor carrying around a beer. I can guarantee you that.
Right, you bet.
To me, he's just a great champion, probably one of our greatest champions, just because he's a stand-up guy on top of it. So
absolutely, absolutely, man. He just I saw him this morning, as a matter of fact.
And he won the world in 3 events plus the all-around. I mean, no one. I was always hoping he'd come back one time and try to win the world heeling. I really wish he would.
Right.
He probably could. He made his first national finals heeling, so ain't no doubt about it.
I know it. There's still plenty of gas left in his tank. And so, if he wanted to, I would think that he could sure give it a big run, whatever he still wanted to do. But, and you know, you look down through the years, all the great champions that have come, and the guys I love, you know, when we're just talking about champions and just the rodeo guys in general, how different it is today, the guys rodeoing. compared to what it was, like you said, your old Ralphie, your partner that still travels in that 2-horse trailer, that inline 2-horse behind a Cadillac or whatever he's got there. But, you know, rodeoing back then, those guys going in the 50s and in the 60s, hey, like, sure enough, tough, and just is a different breed of man. It was a different breed. And I have so much respect for those guys, and just they're my heroes. Those guys were they didn't even pave the way. They didn't care about paving the way. They busted through the way, and I love it. And it's still, you know, it's still when you talk about champions, you talk about great cowboys. Man, you can't overlook those old guys. I love seeing them old footage of those guys on them old Bramers, and you know, and just that. I love that picture of Harry Tompkins just waving at the guys, you know, smiling, or him and Jim Shoulders like riding double on something, and then the calves that and you mentioned this a while ago, the big calves. They used to rope real calves, and then the horses had to be different, and it was such a neat time. And there was that one line in that movie, Junior Bonner, where he said, Ace, he said, how many of these parades we've seen? He said, well, he said, man, too many and not enough. You know, and that's the deal, you know, and so, but he was old man saddling up to go ride in the parade, you know, and it's that type of spirit of, that I love. And I believe that's what carries with it. And that's why I'm such a fan of rodeo. And that's why I'm such a fan of cowboy and just everything that surrounds it. It's the spirit of it.
Nowadays, it's turned into serious business. It always was serious business to everybody. I mean, it's what we did, it's what we loved, it's how we paid our bills, you know, whether we won money or we made a nice horse and had to sell him because we needed money, just whatever, you know. Rodeo, it put a lot of groceries on our table, but nowadays it costs so much to get into the sport, costs so much to go up and down the road, but there's so much money to be won on top of all that. You know, we got a lot of guys that are, I feel like they're real athletes, you know, where before you didn't see these cowboys working out, you know, and doing all this stuff. But nowadays, I mean, it is serious business, and I can see how it's turning, you know, to even more serious business. The only thing that I don't personally agree with on the new modern rodeo, they're trying to make it too fair for every single contestant, you know, taking out some of the luck of the draw or the luck of the weather that day, or, you know, quite a few small little details. You know, they're taking out the crossfire and team roping, they're bull riding, they're going to 8 seconds or 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds, and calves don't have to stay tied for 6 seconds. You know, there's just some stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, like these tournament style rodeos. You know, they're taking the luck of the day out, they're taking the luck of the draw out, some of the many intangibles that, you know, that'll happen to you. But I can see both ways.
Well, and, you know, but it goes back to the same thing that we're talking about, the integrity of the people, the integrity of the sport. And the only thing that holds that stuff together is the integrity of it. The rules, the way that it's set up. It's just like, you know, you watch, any kind of sports now on TV, NFL, basketball, whatever, it's totally changed. And they started that way. They started changing the rules, and they started making it a little easier here. Well, we're going to institute this. Well, now you can't even recognize the game. You don't even want to watch it. And that's what's going to happen with rodeo. But what they're trying to do is sell it to a mainstream audience.
Right.
Well, and that's the same thing that I was talking about with the music. They'll have the music at the deals that does not represent who we are and what it is. And so that's, and you start trying to cater to bring these people in, and well, let's make it good for everybody. Well, man, just make it what it is, and they'll show up just like they always have all these years. And so it wears me out. And I mean, like, and as for the cowboys, the guys that are entering, especially the veterans, the guys just like on the rules changes and all that, those guys need to step up and say, hey, nope, ain't doing it. No, you can't do this. So, you know, and again, I'm not trying to start any kind of fights or nothing, but sometimes a fight needs to be started, and sometimes somebody needs to get punched in the mouth because nobody can hear nothing. And that's the other thing too about the cowboy way of life. And we always dictate things. like at the dances, or especially at the dances. Like in a cowboy deal, if somebody's out of line, well, we just take care of it. You don't have to have 10,000 police around. No, we govern ourselves because everybody's supposed to know the rules and the manners. And if you step out of line, somebody is going to maybe pop you one, and then that's it. Then you kind of learn your lesson. And so, but that whole thing needs to apply to even holding the rules in place and just like, again, the integrity of the sport, because we're going to look up before too long and it ain't going to look the same. It ain't going to be the same. So we can't do it. And again, that's the fight that I fight all the time with rodeo, with our kind of music at the rodeos, the real stuff. And so, and the dances and sure enough, just the integrity of the whole deal. And so, again, I don't mean to go a long way around to start something, but I'm sure glad you said something about it, because it don't need to happen, period.
Right.
Well, everything in the world isn't fair. We're just going to have to tell this generation coming up, just everything ain't
That's
fair.
right.
Sometimes stuff that you're going to draw a steer that runs a little more than the others, or something. But.
Absolutely. What is it on Junior Bonner when he misses that steer and his bulldogging steer and he's walking back up the fence and that dude tells him, "Well, boy, better luck next time, cowboy." And he says, "Happens all the time, dude." Ain't no thing, just happens. No big deal, just happens all the time.
Just get in your car and go down the road to another one.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned dances there a while ago. What's the craziest thing you ever saw at a dance while you were playing?
Well, one time a guy died. He had a heart attack right there on the dance floor. He died. That was maybe one of the wildest things. And I was 18 at the time. Yeah. I was still young. Yeah, old man, he had a heart attack right there. I had to give him CPR, the whole deal. So that was pretty wild. But I've seen some pretty good brawls, and I've been in a couple. I've come off the bandstand and jumped in, and so that's always, but really, I guess that'd be the only thing, when a fight breaks out or something like that. But I guess that's about as wild as it gets for me. The guy dying probably tops the whole the whole deal.
You ever play one of those stages with chicken wire wrapped around it because beer bottles go flying?
Albany, Texas, man. I guarantee you, yes, sir. Albany, Texas. Yep.
Scariest bar I went into in my life one time, Jimbo, was it was a bar in Jackson, Mississippi, man. It was across the road from the truck stop. I walked in it. There was nothing breakable in the whole bar. And I thought, oh, no. And I found out one of them lessons Jake was talking about later on that night, why there was nothing breakable in that whole bar, except for my head.
I'm telling you. Yeah. I love again, going back to the old timers and I say the old timers, but just the veterans, the guys that were around. You hear stories about Steve Duhon and stories about the guys, just the guys that were around that, man, you don't, if something is out of line, they're going to tell you and they're going to fix it. It's going to get fixed.
Yeah. Duhon fix it.
And oh my Lord. Yeah.
What a great guy.
Great guy. And so that's the deal. You talk about Trevor being a stand-up guy, and man, there's so many stand-up guys, and some of them guys that are stand-up guys, they're rough around the edges a little bit, maybe. Well, sometimes need to be, and so I respect every bit of it, and like I said, there's guys that step out of line and they need to get knocked back in line, and it seems like that's just kind of the cowboy way, and it's just that's what keeps it right, and so. Whenever you get the mainstream involved and all that, people from the outside that are in the business positions, well, then it goes to changing. They go to changing the model and trying to reinvent the wheel, and it takes that out of it. So, yeah.
A few years ago, you sang the national anthem at the American, if I remember right.
We did.
How was that? What was the feeling there that day?
Man, it was cool. It was good. It's always whenever you sing the national anthem, man, it's always the first rattle out of the box, and you try to have your voice warmed up. But I've never been a guy that really tries to warm up much. I just go singing. And so sometimes, but that day I was trying to find me a place to dang sure warm up, so I didn't, blow the whole deal. But yeah, really neat. We played in there, and you go in that big stadium, and there's, however many people there, a bunch, and there's a sound issue. There's echo like crazy. The sound guy told me, and we did the national anthem there, and then we played the event one time during the rodeo. We were there, and then we played a PBR event the night before the American one time. And the guy told me, he said, there's a 11-second delay in here. So if I hit a bass note or you hit a kick drum and you go boom, well, it takes 11 seconds for that thing to die out. Wow. It goes all the way around that whole building. And so it gets a little nerve-wracking if you get away from your monitor or whatever, because then you're hearing your voice come back at you, and it ain't the same words you're singing. You know what I mean? So a guy needs to be staying in the right place right there. But such an honor to be in front of our people and to be able to, just be in front of rodeo fans, that many of them in one place. Yeah, pretty cool.
When you saw Trevor this morning, did he say anything about being one of the coaches on Kid Rock's rodeo deal?
No, he didn't. He was drinking a cup of coffee and rehabbing his shoulder. He had a shoulder deal in January, I think, and so he was rehabbing. We just visited for just a second. My son was in there for his knee, and so but he didn't say nothing about that. How's that deal going to work?
Well, I don't know. I'm just going to be interesting to see.
Well, I keep hearing a little bit about it, but what is the rodeo? Explain it to me a little bit, would you?
The way I understand it, and I don't know that much about it, is they've selected, I don't know, there's about a half a dozen teams or a little more, and they all have a coach. So everybody that's a roper, they've drafted the best people in the world on each team. So, like Trevor has a team. He drafted a calf roper, a barrel racer, bulldogger, team roper, and I guess the whole team goes head to head. There's not going to be any individual champions. It's going to be a team champion at the end of the day. So from what I understand, when the calf ropers go, there's going to be two calf ropers go at the same time, and the first calf roper that throws his hands in the air is the winner of that heat against that other team. So it's going to be interesting to see. They've tried that team rodeo thing a few times. We wish them luck on this one. So,
right. All right.
I don't know that much about it, Jake.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm with you. I don't either, and I haven't really tried to look much. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
I respect a lot of the coaches they grab for it. Cody Ohl and Trevor and Justin McKee, I believe, is a coach, and Charmaine James is one of the coaches. So drafting the team. So we'll see how. I think it's the PBR's PBR. They're trying to step into the rodeo business with this.
Right.
That's
I'm
what
with
I
you.
understand.
Right.
Jake,
Well,
if you were putting together a Mount Rushmore of Western swing, who would you put on? Need 4 names. It doesn't have to be singers. It could be musicians or whatever, but who would you put on your Mount Rushmore?
Could even be a roadie. Could be a roadie.
Yeah, could be a roadie. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore Western swing?
Jake, if you ever need a roadie, I'm just throwing this out there. My name's Cody. Cody
Yeah.
the roadie.
Cody the roadie. Well, we'd
Yeah.
have to put you up there then, because I bet you'd be a pretty good roadie. I bet you'd fill the spot.
Yeah. I would never miss a show. I'd be wiring stuff in left and right, trying to keep it going. I don't know. I've been doing typical roadie stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forgot about. We got to get to
the-
this Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore. Well, of course, Bob Wills to lead the band, and then you'd have to have the right guys in place, and it's hard to not pull from in the Western swing part of it, all of his guys, and the guys throughout the years that came, and I'm a fan of the musicians, and so I would say Tiny Moore, Johnny Gimbel, and Johnny Cuviello was the drummer, and man, he'd carry the mail, and so you got to have a rhythm section. So there you go. That's what
There you go.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Well, good. You didn't even stutter. We ask that question a lot, different rodeo events and stuff, and everybody name one or two, but they always have trouble naming all four.
Right. You bet. There's so many that I did leave out, because there's argument everywhere around. But for that deal, for Sure Enough Western Swing, man, that'd be a pretty good deal.
Was Bob the first one to introduce drums to Western music?
You bet. And on the Grand Ole Opry for sure, he was the first one on the Grand Ole Opry to have drums. And so it was kind of a big deal back then because everything was just acoustic there. They didn't have any drums at the Grand Ole Opry, but whenever he showed up, he said, no, this is Bob Wills and Texas Playboy. That's what you get. And so, anyway, but really, because back then they had a big swing band and they had drums because they were doing dances. So they had drums, but it was, he just carried it into a new era for sure.
Wow.
Well, if everybody don't know, Jake is going to be right up here in Pawhuska, June, I believe, 15th, playing right after the WRCA Ranc Rodeo. It's going to be a great weekend. The 14th, 15th, and 16th, we got a ranch rodeo on Friday night. Big trade show named after a local legend around here, John D. Israel. The John D. Israel Cowboy trade shows going on during the ranch rodeo. And then the next day we have a women's ranch rodeo, junior ranch rodeo, trade show going on. That night is the open ranch rodeo, the second perf of it. And right the second the rodeo is over, Jake's going to crank up the band, playing old-fashioned rodeo dance right here in Pawhuska.
Absolutely. You bet.
And then the next morning, right before the 70th annual Ben Johnson Steer Roping, we're going to have Jake there. He's going to help us with a little cowboy church service the next morning. And
absolutely.
Then we're going to have the kids dummy roping. Then we're going to have the Calcutta. And then we're going to go on with the 70th annual Ben Johnson Steer Roping. The top 30 guys in the world, plus 10 wild cards right out of the Claremore Rodeo. It's PRCA sanctioned. It counts to go towards the World Championship. It counts to go towards the national finals. And the best of the best, they're going to be here. Father's Day right here in Pawhuska.
Nice work, you guys. You bet.
And
I love
so tickled to have Jake here.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, likewise, you guys. I'm honored to be a part of it. And like I said, it's just, you explained it all right, really good. That's going to be such a great event, man. I'm going to be glad to be right in the middle of it.
It's going to be real cowboy music, real cowboy stuff, and real cowboy country.
Right.
Absolutely.
This is pretty good.
Don't get any better, guys.
Right.
Don't get any better.
Nope.
Jake, we appreciate you. How can people buy your music or find you if they want to buy?
Man, just
buy some
type
stuff,
in my name. Yeah. Well, Jake Hooker Music on the deal, iTunes and things like that for sure. It's everywhere that is. But I think that's the best way. Just Jake Hooker. You just type my name in and hope that it leads me. Hope that it leads you to me and not somewhere else.
He kept. Yeah. You ever been through Hooker, Oklahoma, Jake?
Mm-hmm.
The softball team they used to have there was called the Hooker Horny Toads. I think that was their school team at one point. Yeah. For a long time they were known as the Hooker Horny Toads. So
I love it.
They still sell the shirts there at the Loves. I think Hooker Horny Toads.
Well, if you go through there, get me one.
Yeah, I will.
I love it.
One. And Jake was talking about how rodeo is a family sport, and it's one generation after the next. I don't think we ever even talked about, his dad,
right,
Jake, and he's passing it on to his family too. I think his boys are right part of his band, and they're some very fine players themselves.
I bet
they're doing great. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, they're doing fantastic, and it's so cool to see them connecting the dots and putting in the work and wanting to and actually doing it, and they get to see the fruit of it, and so it's really good. Yeah. It's a lot of fun for me to have them with me, get to travel and have a good time. So it's been really cool.
Best memories of my life is when I got old enough to rodeo and I started traveling with my dad, and
Yeah.
You just can't. Those are just the best
Right.
memories you're ever going to have.
For sure.
Absolutely. And then now you got, you can pass that on. And so it truly is, man. It's a humbling thing. It's a very honored thing, I think. And, man, I'm so glad to actually realize it. I think that's the big deal, you guys, is like, you got to realize that stuff, and enjoy the journey on the way. And like, but if I don't realize that that's the deal, then I'm missing it,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad today that I actually, my eyes are open to actually see that and appreciate that.
Smell the roses, you might say.
Absolutely. You bet. Let's look up. Let's look at the scenery as we go by here. Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of my dad, I want to send him a big congratulations out. We just found out this week that they're going to be inducting him into the Cheyenne Frontier Days Hall of Fame this year. So
How cool is that?
we're real proud of him for that.
Absolutely.
I bet. Absolutely.
And
You bet.
Jimbo's grandpa, he was just a couple of years ago, they put him in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. And this year we
Really?
get his Uncle Joe, he's up for the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. So
How neat.
we're wishing him luck on that vote too. If anyone has a vote in it, hey,
You bet.
give it to a better guy than Joe, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. That's awesome.
Jake, we sure appreciate you coming on today and taking time out of. We know you got a busy schedule and you got a lot going on, and just to talk to us about your life and the rodeo coming up here in Pawhuska, and it was just great. I loved it.
Well, me too. And I just want to thank you for keeping the Western music, the music I grew up on, trying to keep it alive, Jake.
Hey, well, thank you, and thank you for saying that. And but you guys are the ones having the podcast, so y'all are doing the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah,
you know it.
We are.
You are, and I so I appreciate it very much because that's what has to happen, and so it's really great to be on with you guys, and I can't wait to come up to Cowboy Country up there, and there's something like when you drop off down into Pawhuska, and that country goes to changing and looking like something. I can't wait to see that steer open.
You know the old famous song, Oklahoma Hills, Where I Belong?
Right.
Bet.
That was wrote about our area.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Way down yonder in the Indian Nation.
That's right. That was wrote about just Pawhuska, the general surrounding area of
It even
Pawhuska.
mentions Osage. It says in the land of the great Osage.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. It sure does. You bet. I'm telling you, yeah. So it's I'll be doing that one that night, maybe a couple of times. We'll have to.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great song. It's a great song. It was actually written about our area, and if you listen to it, it does mention a lot of things about our area.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, you bet. Yeah.
all right, Jake.
I love it.
Thank you so much for everything you do. Keep this Western way of life alive.
Thanks, Jake.
Yes, sir. You guys too. Thank you guys so much.
Everybody get over here to the Ben Johnson Museum, Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, and the old
Saucy Cat.
Saucy Calf. Don't forget about Ben Johnson Days. Come see Jake for yourself.
Yes.
14th, 15th, and 16th of June. All right. See y'all next week.